thank you for everyone to make time this morning for the MPMN. Have a really good session here for everyone. We're going to be talking about scheduling and claims. Sorry, by the way, for those who don't know me, my name is Taryn. I work in our overhead lines group at Pullman Court. For some of you who work on some of our more unique clients like Metrolinx, MTO, several of the private developers, etc., you probably know that claims and scheduling is getting more and more important to our clients, as we see now. Particularly on my Metrolinx contracts, claims are a big point of discussion. So I think when I started a long time ago at this company, we had maybe Julie and Africa can confirm, I think we had more of a reactive approach to claims. And as you guys can imagine, reactive approaches are only going to get you so far. So I'm happy to have Jarvin Wang, our Department Manager of Scheduling and Claims, and she's got a great session to talk about. And yeah, as a company, we really want to kind of promote, we really want to push advanced planning for claims and really want to push a proactive approach, not a reactive approach. So please give a small hand for Jarvin.
I'm going to do this.
She hasn't.
I think I want to move this back because I can't see. Okay. Is that good? Oh, what did I drop? Oh, thanks. Oh, thanks. Oh, thanks. I get sparkles. Okay, so yeah, we are going to be talking about scheduling and claims today. Hopefully I can make everybody a scheduler, then we won't have to do as much work. I know everyone's focus is probably on claims, but scheduling and claims go hand in hand. And we need to do the scheduling in order to provide the backup for claims. So we're going to start with scheduling, and then we're going to move into claims. And the last time I did this presentation, I had 120 slides. So what I tried to do was really shrink it down. So it's a bit of a glossed over version, and anyone that needs any additional information, I'm on the second floor at Pullman. You can come and find me. Or my team. So the agenda today is pretty simple. We'll have an introduction, team member, what services we provide. Pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about scheduling. So you're all going to get a bit of a crash course in scheduling. I think most of you know something about planning. And then we're going to talk about delays. We're going to talk about claims, delay analysis, and documentation. So as a brief introduction, scheduling and claims avoidance. Claims is to me, it's a dirty word. So I have to have avoidance in there because that's the ultimate goal for us. We really don't want to go down the full-blown claims path because those disputes are very costly and time-consuming. And time-consuming, I mean in the magnitude of years. We're up to 5 years on some claims that are outstanding in Southern Ontario. They're just working their way through the court system. That's just the way it works in Canada. We're very slow if it gets to that point in terms of litigation. So I have 7 members of the team, and I have 2 senior contractors that I didn't list because they're not, they're contractors, they're job specific, and they are at the Next Star Windsor electric vehicle battery plant. So Kevin and Akbar are also at Windsor. They're full-time there, so we actually have a team of 4 there, handling all the scheduling and all of the ins and outs that comes with it. They do handle some claims avoidance, which is natural. So it is a team of 4. We also have another project controls individual there, so actually the team is 5. No, although I did send them invitations. I don't know if they're online because they're in Windsor. And then I have Farshad. Farshad, you can wave, you're here. And he is a scheduler. He joined us last year. Great asset to the team. He handles most of our Hydro One schedules, so he really interfaces with our Hydro One clients almost on a daily basis. Manny is also here. Yes, there. Okay. Manny's on Scarborough Subway Extension, Ontario Line, EGS, and other large P3 bids that are coming up. So he works with Kathy Kent quite a bit. And then Young, I don't think Young is here. Young is one of our senior schedulers. He does double duty. So he handles quite a few of the large claims in Southern Ontario, mostly the ICI groups. And then he does a lot of the major scheduling as well. And then Alan, yes, is here too, is our other senior scheduler who also does double duty and does quite a few of the major claims for the Southern Ontario Utilities Division, that's you guys, and also the Western Utilities region. And he does a lot of scheduling, but he also does a lot of major claims. And then there's me, and I'm the manager, and these guys all make me look good. Okay, so the services we provide are scheduling, of course. So it runs a gamut of bid schedules, regular schedule updates, look-ahead schedules, recovery schedules when required. So bid schedules become a pretty big thing, especially for you guys. Not so much in the ICI electrical mechanical side. What I do find is because a major client is Hydro One, they're very specific. They're very picky. Metrolinx, same thing. TTC, same thing. They have very detailed and in-depth scheduling specifications. So we tend to get involved right at the beginning at the bid phase, and then it just carries through. For the claims side, it runs the gamut. No claim is the same. Every claim is unique. Principles are, in terms of schedule analysis, those are similar, and we do apply those. But things that we can do are notice letters, quantifying delay impacts, extension of time, and loss of productivity, just to gloss over. No? No? Uh-oh. I'm frozen. There we go. Oh, shoot. No, I'm frozen.
Just click it back.
Scheduling is a determination of time and sequence of operations and installations to give overall duration. Establishment of specific start and finish dates for activities, the determination of what resources are needed when, for how long, for which activity, and providing detailed information for estimating and project controls, which can be an iterative and cyclical process where, we get together. It's not an exact science. Usually what we do is we put something together on the basis of information from the estimator, everything. Then we sit down and we go through and we review and we talk about it with the execution team or the bid team. I like to ask, every time someone asks me for a schedule, I always ask them for goalposts first. What do I have to fit into? And then we figure it out from there. Okay. So why do we plan and schedule, right? So as stated in the MPMM, a project schedule is a component of a project plan. And we plan to combat unrehearsed scenarios by thinking ahead. You can just scroll through them all, I think. So this gives us the ability to identify problems as soon as we can, thereby possibly avoiding problems or coming up with a plan to mitigate and minimize the impact of problems. It can help us to allocate our resources, and then ultimately works into project controls. And this is all with the end goal of avoiding a claim. Right? So scheduling for a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is one of the most popular and useful ways for showing activities against time. Everybody's seen these. This particular one happens to be a P6 version. Some of you guys, I work in Microsoft Project. The team does. We're well versed in both. So for large construction projects like the P3s and clients like Hydro One and TTC and Metrolinx, they have scheduling specs that call from Primavera P6. For smaller projects, there is a couple of exceptions. We've had a couple of smaller Hydro One projects, maybe a couple of buildings where our project manager wanted Microsoft Project, approached Hydro One, and they made the exception. We got it in writing, they let us deviate from the spec. For smaller construction projects with less complexity, fewer activities, shorter duration, those we can do in Microsoft Project. That tends to be if it's not required by an owner or client, it's a project manager's call. Microsoft Project, as PMs, there's courses on Litmus. You can go and take two. I think there are two courses, one that's a beginner and the other, or an intro, and the other one's a little bit more advanced. Just so that you can have a little bit more control over your schedule, but we're always around, we're here, we can help in any way. We can do the updates. If you want to do the updates, we can help you with the updates. If you want to be in control of your destiny and do your own updates, that's fine too. And then on the flip side, Microsoft Project, obviously, it's a Microsoft product. It's cheaper. Primavera P6 is very expensive. It's highly specialized, requires training. I think everything we do for P6, we have to do internally within the team. Okay? So what goes into a Gantt chart? So we've got 5 areas, I guess, that we want to see, or 4 areas really, and then the 5th one is just a byproduct. A work breakdown structure. So that's like the framework of a schedule, and that's breaking a schedule into bite-sized pieces. Sometimes what happens is scheduling, you just plunge right in and you begin putting activities in with no thought or plan for a work breakdown structure. So the flip side of doing that without planning the work breakdown structure is sometimes when you do it a bit ass backwards, it's less efficient. Logic and relationships, so predecessors and successors, are key parts of the Gantt chart. It's the arrangement of work activities in the order in which activities will be performed. So your predecessor activity is one that must be started or completed before a given activity can be started. A successor activity is one that cannot start until a given activity is started or completed. A concurrent activity, they're logically independent from one another, and they can be performed in parallel or at the same time. Activity durations, so that is part of the cyclical. So typically we get estimates from the estimator, and then we ask what are the crew sizes that you want to see, what are you planning to put in, and then on that basis we can work out a duration. It kind of goes back and forth, because then you've got some instances where you have a peak in manpower and we have to level it out. So there's a bit of a trade-off there, and that leads into resource loading, which is we need to identify our key resources, figure out the availability, any kind of constraints, and then ultimately optimize the resources. The last part, which is earned value. So earned value is just a component of scheduling that we can do, which is to take your physical percentage complete and put it against the rate of performance. It's like productivity measuring. So, critical path. So what is critical path besides red bars, right? So if we've done a schedule for you, usually we're required to show a critical path. That's part of the spec. Critical path is visually denoted by red bars. And it is a series of activities that determines the project's completion time. So the duration of activities on the critical path control the duration of the entire project. Critical activities have zero float, which means there's no slack in the schedule or in these activities. And delay to any of these activities will ultimately delay the finish date of your entire project. So the bottom line is the longest path through a network of activities with interdependencies makes up your critical path. Okay, good. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then you guys can answer if you want to. Throw it out. I'll give you a few seconds, and then. So float. So float. What is float? Does anyone know? Anyone want to venture a guess? Right. Okay, that's fine. Next question, I don't give you the answer. Who owns float? Okay. No? Sorry? No. Could be, but no. No. So the answer is the project owns the float. So it is whoever needs it first, not who gets to it first. So it could be the contractor, we could be in a delayed situation, and we could need the float first, which means we get the float first. It could be somebody else. We could have delayed the owner, and then the owner needs it, they could get, it's not who gets to it first, it's who needs it first. Why is float important? Hey, Anthony, gold star. Yes, float is important. It is the amount of time that an activity can be delayed without affecting the project completion. Okay, so that's the basics of scheduling, ins and outs. Let's talk about delays. I know, my favorite cat. I'm a cat person, so. Okay, so generally, what is delay? Well, it's the time in which a part of a project schedule that's extended, and it couldn't be done, or parts of it could not be done due to an unanticipated or unplanned event or series of events. So when we talk about construction delays, I say here two major categories. Oh, we gotta go next, sorry. Maybe a little fast. That's okay. Actually, there's three. I realized that after I was doing the slides, but that's okay. We'll talk about two first, and the third one, it's coming up. So we have excusable delays, which are compensable or non-compensable. So excusable means you get time. Compensable means you get money. So under the time delay, you can get money, or you cannot, or you don't get money. On a non-excusable delay, you never get money because it's non-excusable. You never get time. So there's no time, no money. Okay. So excusable and compensable delays are delays for which the owner must assume responsibility. It's based on the contract. They usually have pretty good section on delays, and then these delays would entitle the contractor to both extension of time and compensation. So an example, an excusable delay, just as a pictorial illustration, you have your plan, you have your as-built, oh, you have an owner's delay. So we get that little bit of red on the end, which is what got pushed out. That's our extension of time. And in this scenario, we get money for the delay, we get time, and we don't get assessed liquidated damages because we get our end date moved out. So, time and money. Excusable and non-compensable, typically force majeure events, unusually severe weather, strikes, COVID, that's a big force majeure. These delays are time, no money.
So now the pandemic is part of the force majeure?
Not anymore. Before we had the pandemic, it was a force majeure. Now it's written into the contracts. Typically, most contracts will address COVID in terms of escalation, material escalation, just specific things like that. And yes, it becomes not. So I don't know if we go through another worldwide pandemic, whether or not name something else, whether it will become. It's very specific situation. So here we get no disruption damages, but we get no extension of time damages, but we get also no liquidated damages because we get the time. Non-excusable delay is our fault. We're bad, right? So it's resulting from the shortcomings of the contractor or its subcontractors. So we cause the delay, and it's non-excused, and we don't get time and we don't get money, and we may, one, be on the hook for liquidated damages if it's in your contract, if we can't recover. We may be on the hook for acceleration costs to try to bring back the schedule, and we might be at risk for a claim from the owner if they so choose to put a claim against us, right? No money, and may have to pay money. Okay. So the third delay, the category that I didn't talk about in my original slide, are concurrent delays. And that's typically what we have on the projects, unless it's pretty cut and dry. So concurrent delays are both parties. So the owner has a delay, we have a delay, it happens to be in the same period. So it's kind of like nobody, I mean, we all bear fault for our own delays, but it becomes a time situation. So there is no money involved. It can be similar to the force majeure type of scenario. Thank you. Yep. So the top one is the non-excusable delay, which is us, and then you've got an owner delay that also happens in that same chain of activities. happens while we, so, okay.
So, Johnny, the force majeure is going to be part of the general conditions or going to be special provisions in the construction plan?
Could be, it depends on the contract and how it's written. But typically, I think force majeure would be in the supplementary conditions. And it's laid out. We'll talk about contract a little bit later. So in the concurrent delay situation, the contractor is entitled to extension of time for the effects of the excusable event. It doesn't matter if it's a force majeure event or an owner-driven delay or a neutral event, as we call it. And the contractor is entitled to extension of time even though they may have caused a delay as well at the same time, because it's concurrent. We just would not be able to get money out of it. So how do we handle delays? Oh, sorry, I went ahead. You can skip this. So you suffered delays on a project, or you foresee delays to your activities that haven't happened, but the predecessor trade or predecessor activities are delayed, so you know it's coming. You got to know your contract. Every contract is different. I know we have clients that are repeat clients, but we've had situations where, and actually we got caught on Hydro 1, it's a small one. It was actually in the scheduling spec, so we've been P6, P6, P6 all the way through. And all of a sudden last year, one of the small jobs came up and they happened to drop P6, which was very unusual. I think it was just a typo, but things like that can crop up. You've got to know your contract. You have to know your notice provision timeframes. Those always change and they can be very specific. So any delay that comes up, any potential delay, you have to issue a notice letter or some sort of correspondence. Maybe letter seems a little formal. It can be email, but it absolutely has to be written and not verbal. It doesn't have to have detail. We're simply looking for, if you have to submit a notice letter for delay within 5 days, just put in the letter. There's no way you can do the calculation. If you can, that's great. But just say, hey, we're delayed, in this particular location. We were prevented from doing work, or the design is delayed. We can't start. We're going to have impacts. We just don't know what they are right now. We need that notice to preserve entitlement. It becomes a harder fight if we don't have the notice letter. So that's one thing that I think everybody will just keep harping on, which is notice, 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 provide notice. It doesn't have to be difficult, a couple of lines. And I have samples of notice letters that I can share. I think at one point we were supposed to set up a general sort of share folder with some of this information. So I'll circle back and see what's happening and where we can put this information. So, it's just, we've been delayed, we will submit costs and time impacts at a later date, something along those lines, and, we just, entitlement, preserving entitlement. It could be that there is no impact. So there's no harm, no foul. You put in a notice letter, it doesn't matter. You don't even have to rescind it. It just, if you don't end up if your delay is a no cost, no impact delay, you don't have to do anything about it. So most owners require demonstration of entitlement. So that's through backup documentation for the narrative portion, and then it's through schedule analysis for illustration purposes. So we do schedule analysis, our team does mostly schedule analysis to show the effect of delays on the critical path. And I'll just touch on three very common ones. As built, as planned, self-explanatory. You got a as-built schedule, as planned, you do the comparison, you see the difference, you provide the narrative for why we've got a difference, why our finish date was so much later. We have the time impact analysis, so for the TTC and from Metrolinx, I think, right, Alan, they require, whenever we submit a delay notice, we have to submit to them a discrete time impact analysis for that particular delay. So not something that we're going to wait until the end where we're going to do a global sort of time impact with all the delays. They want, as the delays come up, they want every little time impact analysis done for every delay that we're claiming against. And then in situations where we get into more contemporaneous, which is forensic side of things, which the job is mostly done, we could do windows analysis, which are mini as-built, so to speak, based on specific chosen events. You pick windows, and then you do analysis on that. I think I skipped ahead. So for the TIA, for the time impact analysis, though, it's not a difficult concept. It's that you have a particular activity or something that you were going to do, and something prevented you from doing it, be it a change or whatever. So the way we do it discreetly is we can insert an activity to represent the delay, and then link it up to the activity it's affecting, and then let it flow downstream to show you what the effect of that particular delay is. For an in-progress activity, you can change the remaining duration and just extend it by the amount of time for the delay. That requires additional backup when you add remaining duration. So an example of the inserting activity. So 3 original activities: piles, foundations, backfill. Then you got to change the foundation, but you haven't started it yet, so you insert the change, pushes the whole thing out. The difference is your delay. For an activity that's in progress, you get 3 delay activities that got inserted within this particular activity, so we split it and insert it. Okay. Cost impacts. So if we are in a situation we are compensable, excusable, compensable, we're going to get cost for time extension. That's your additional indirects, be it on-site, be it off-site. You can also have loss of productivity due to disruption, and the 2 methods that we use are measured mile or empirical tables. So measured mile would be a comparison of the best and the least impacted work periods. In most cases, we don't have a clean least impacted. So we take, we don't have a non-impacted, so we take the least impacted. That is favored over doing the empirical way, which is taking all the studies. So NECA has a very comprehensive set of manuals related to delay and all the effects. They've done tons of study, temperature, trade stacking, everything, all the effects. MCAA has their tables as well. We also have what's called the Leonard curves, which are cumulative effect of change orders on loss, for loss of productivity. And the Leonard curves are based, well, they came from the thesis from Charles Leonard, and Charles Leonard works for Black and Macdonald. So just as an FYI. There are also cost impacts related to escalation. So that would include labor rates and material. Labor rates, straightforward. You push out into another union year with a union increase. Nobody ever argues that. It's a very straightforward calculation. What's remaining? What is the difference between the union rate? Material escalation. So that wasn't something that we really did a lot of until COVID came along. Actually until, I think, 18 months after COVID, because that's when we really saw the trickle down of raw materials for copper, for just different building materials that we needed, and the prices were crazy. So for jobs that we had bid pre-COVID and then came back, and so 2019 versus 2022, the prices were just astronomical. So on that basis, if we don't have a situation, so you're in 2019, your job's about to start, maybe 6-8 months down the road, so you haven't actually put in your material order yet. If you put your material order in, that's great, because then you'll have an invoice with the price that you would have paid back then, and then 3 years down the road or 2.5 years down the road, you get another price. Those are easy. In the cases where we didn't have it, so we resorted to looking at the raw material price indexes. It's like a 50-50 success rate. Some owners balk at it. Other owners were okay. So I would say government related, they were okay with the price index. Private owners, no. They basically told you to go fly a kite. Okay, so I don't think I have enough time. I'm just going to talk about extension of time, costs, indirect. It's the simplest of them all. Loss of productivity requires a lot more explanation. So we have a spreadsheet. Again, it can be shared. I think a lot of you guys already have the spreadsheet. 10 sections, and you can fill in whatever you can, and then we get back together and we try to go through. So the 10 components consist of your extended site overhead. So that's your staff on site. So whatever your hourly rate is and whatever the extended time is, it's a simple calculation. These are all very simple calculations. Part 2, it's your project admin and management. So people argue that 2 and 5 are the same, and they can be, and they can overlap. I like to play the game where I include it anyway, knowing that there's a high probability we're going to get educated and schooled by the other side. But there is the odd time when we don't get questioned about it. So it's like throwing the dice, or I call it throwing spaghetti at the wall. Yeah, and then everything else is pretty straightforward. Extended site facilities, that's your trailers, any equipment you have, water coolers, anything that requires a regular, fee. You've got your extended storage, which are your sea cans, your rentals, your unabsorbed head office overhead, so your WHO. It can be based on the Hudson formula, which is an industry accepted formula. The courts are okay with it. It's 5% of the original contract value divided by the original duration. Now, the 5% for Black & Macdonald is low. So our corporate overhead, for, I guess, division managers will know, it's not 5%. The 5% is low. So depending on what we're pursuing, the choice is you can use the 5%, which we say openly it's the Hudson formula, or we stick in our own percentage and we'll have to prove. I mean, we did that. We had to issue, our finance guys had to issue a letter to state that this is what our head office overhead comprises of, and this is the percentage. It's based on year-over-year sales. So not a difficult thing. We've done in the past for both, but again, it's a calculation. Warranty costs for extended warranty, that isn't just equipment. That's workmanship as well. So it can be a percentage of the overall contract, or typically what happens in a large project situation, we have very specific equipment. We may go to 1 or 2 of the major suppliers and say, what would the extended warranty cost on your particular equipment? So for the TTC, they had very specific equipment coming from the United States. The extended warranty on that ended up being $500,000. Just for the equipment, not even for workmanship. So when we presented 4 such types of examples to the TTC, they waived the extended warranty. So we got it in writing, they waived it, they didn't want to pay it. Bonding is a simple exercise of calling up Petrella Winters and saying, hey, we got extended, please give us a new invoice. The holdback financing comes from above, prime plus 3, which is really cheap. Typically, construction loans run in the double digits. So for Black & Macdonald to finance somebody else holding our holdback for 1, 2, 3 years, It's a pretty cheap kind of proposition, but it's money that we're due. Had we finished on time, we would have had this holdback. We would have put it to other use. We would have been able to bid on other projects. We would have been able to do other things with it. So in Canada, it's a harder fight because we're Canadians. In the United States, specifically in the state of Texas, you get 18%. That's in the contract for damages. Like if they've withheld and the court decides that they were wrong to do so, there's case law for that. Again, I said labor escalation. It's very simple. Nobody argues about that. And then you have your subcontractors' claims. So subcontractors' claims are a little bit iffy for me. I tend to feel like if they haven't approached you, the danger of if you ask, you shall receive, it goes around. It means all of a sudden you'll get inundated with everybody wanting to do claims. And if they're not up to the standard of what we need to submit with backup, the owner will reject it. And then it becomes a fight between us and them. If it's, so, yeah. The rest of the slides are just examples of the spreadsheet and what would go into it, like very simply. You've got a PM or a PC, you've got a rate, you've got the hours. It's simple math calculations. Same with the site equipment. And then is that the final page? I can't see. Is that the summary page? Yeah, and then it's the summary page. Okay, so the one thing about extension of time calculations for indirects is the sooner we can do the per diem calculation, the better. And the sooner you can get an agreement on the per diem calculation, the better off you are. Because then it just becomes a simple math situation. If the project continues to get delayed, you would just go back and say, here's our proof of delay. We're showing you entitlement, and this is what we agreed to before as a per diem rate. Make the multiplication, and you get the compensation for it. I say sooner rather than later because the longer we wait, the per diem rate just degrades just slightly because there are certain items on there, like the bonding, that does not increase at the rate like our hourly salary rates or our rental rates. Bonding is something, and insurance is something that I don't know, it's kind of voodoo magic because you can't work out what the rate is. They have their tables. So I feel like the earlier we can do the per diem, it's just slightly higher. I'm not talking about tens of thousands of dollars. It's just a slightly higher per diem. So if we can get that agreement, it works in our favor. So in the project management thing manual, I guess we skipped that. Okay, that's okay. You guys can read it. It's there. It's 3.8.3.5. I think the only thing is claims eventually, if it doesn't get resolved, will potentially involve legal, right? And the alternative dispute resolution steps are typically on the larger contracts laid out very specifically in the contracts, whether it's mediation or arbitration or we're going to referee, or it's usually very detailed. So in a nutshell, for claims, it's all about documentation. And you can't start any sooner than at the beginning. You've got to, right from the beginning, right? So there is a checklist. I know it's hard to read. Again, we can provide that to anybody that wants it. It's just pretty straightforward. You want to make sure that you've got everything, sort of your letters, your emails, your minutes of meeting, anything that will track. The number one thing, I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to probably cut it off and just say the number one thing you have to remember is you have to know your contract. You just have to know your contract. You have to read your contract, you have to know your contract, you have to know your notice provisions, and you have to put notice in. Doesn't matter how big, how small, inconsequential, put the notice letter in. What's the worst that can happen? Somebody just yells at you and says, well, you know, okay, so you hurt someone's feelings. Oh, shucks. Okay, so I think we only have like 5 minutes for, okay. Sure. Oh, no questions.
If anybody has any questions, just raise your hand. I'll bring the mic to you.
This is good.
I have a question, Jarvin.
Oh, darn.
So, from your history here, when this group brings a claim to you, what have you found is most helpful, and what have they brought that's not helpful? What does this team need to do when you say documentation?
So nobody's ever brought nothing that's not helpful. Everything you bring is helpful. It doesn't matter. Like, we'll take everything. We'd rather take everything and weed through it than miss something. So if you don't know, if you're not sure, send it anyway. So what we would like is, typically we want a folder with everything in it. So we don't want to have to go through project folders. And I know, you know, oh, just get access to the project. Because we're not living the project day to day, we don't know all the specifics for operations. It's best if you create the folder for us and then begin dumping in all of the information with the issues, related to issues. So, yeah.
How valuable and useful are people's logbooks?
Yeah, we take a logbook for sure. It's written. And there are times when diaries do get subpoenaed, so they get discovered. So yes, again, we want to know what's in there.
I'm just going to ask another question while I walk over to Phil.
Okay.
How many claims have we had from our subcontractors, and what do we need to defend a claim from a sub?
Actually, we haven't had that many claims from subcontractors. I have to think about this. We've had a couple on the ICI mechanical side, which unfortunately is tied up in the courts. So this job is something that was pre my days. So we're going on to I've been with Black & Macdonald 6 years, right? Going on to year 7 on that one.
With respect to data analytics in like health and safety, our company has a lot of information. We know, I've seen presentations where we know which day of the week we're more prone to accidents and what, if it's in the morning, late morning, afternoon. I think our company has so many completed projects that we have to start as a company looking at data analytics. And as a group looking at do we have more risk in plan and spec or design build? Data analytics with the contract that we sign on day one, what are we ending at the end of the job? And I think that those data analytics will give us information as a company on where we're really successful and what type of high-risk ventures that have the claims, and then coming up with a program to de-risk those. We live in a world where there's high risk and high reward, and we're definitely in a high-risk sector.
Yep.
But that's something I think that could be of use for everybody in this room, and it'd be great to have it. And I think we have all the technology at our disposal, so I want to advocate that from this meeting.
So for that, I would say we would, I think, there's no one here that has the time to go through that all. So I think the best type of forum for that is to go to one of the universities and have a master's thesis or somebody do a thesis on it. So that's how we got the Leonard curves, because the Leonard curves were born out of Charles Leonard. He did his master's thesis on the cumulative effect of change orders on the electrical and mechanical trades specifically, and he had like just a massive database of projects that were completed, and that's what formed the basis of his thesis. And we still use the Leonard curves. They're still quoted. People say, oh, the Leonard curves, and I say, yeah, I know him. I actually had somebody come to me, and I can't remember in which setting, kind of doing a bit of a fangirl. They were like, you know Charles? And I was like, yes, I do. So, yeah. So, Phil, I'm with you on that. I think we have a lot of data. We do. Time is the factor here, and I think it's a situation where we partner with an educational institution and have them, have someone do their thesis on it, and then we can get the information out of it.
Any other questions?
Well, just Taryn. You don't need the mic.
Apologize. Kind of relates to a lot of us here. Oftentimes we'll start a project and something will happen on the project, scope change, scope addition, scope creep, whatever it is. And in theory, we're always asked to stop what we're doing, price out that change, price out that claim, have the owner agree to it, get a purchase order for it, get it added to our existing PO, get a new PO, whatever it is. Sometimes these can be major. Oftentimes that also hurt our relationship with the client because we'll be affecting the schedule. They may have capitalization dates on their end.
Yep.
So how do we deal with those major claims where, is it a relationship thing? Is it going back to the contract where we think about stopping the work before we get paid?
I think for that it's your client best, and it's a situation where, listen, shit happens. Everybody knows shit happens, right? It's about managing expectations. So maybe it's a scenario where, okay, yeah, we've got TTC, we're going to have this massive delay, but we're going to tell them as soon as we know there's something brewing, we don't know what it is, let's keep our dialogue, let's keep talking. But there's always the reassurance that maybe it amounts to nothing, or maybe it can be minimized now that we know that there's something that's happening and whatnot. It's about knowing your client and how to kind of interface. So oftentimes what I'll say, if you want to put a notice letter in, pick up the phone first, give them a call, and you can throw senior management under the bus and just say, listen, I'm required to put a notice letter in. It's not something, we're friends. It's not something I would want to do. But if I don't do it, I'll get fired. So feel it from my side. I have to do it. It's not what I want to do. You kind of play it that way. And then it gives them a sort of an opportunity to realize that, okay, something's coming. And then when the letter comes, it's not so bad. When you have these conversations, it may not be as bad. Like it's not pleasant, but that's the reality. Otherwise, we're just going to roll over and not submit claims, right?
Any other questions for Jarvin?
Oh, it's past time. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Jarvin. Appreciate it.
If you want more information, I have a lot more information. This is 120 slides down to 40,
Yeah.
and I didn't even make it through. And I said I speak quick, fast, right, Judy? But no.
No, it's great. It's a good
Still didn't make
overview.
it.
So we're going to take a break for lunch. Should be out in the lobby, and then we're back at 1 o'clock. Thanks.
Okay. Ooh, thank you.